Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. KELVIN EMMANUEL, who is the director of Medicine, Accra, Nigeria. Hello, KELVIN, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you, Nancy. How are you today?
I'm very well. KELVIN, please, can you pronounce the company again so that I can get
It's
it
actually
well?
it's actually Obsidian Achana.
Sorry?
Obsidian Achana.
Okay, Obsidian Achana. All right.
Yes.
I hope I don't murder it again. But thank you very much for joining me this morning. KELVIN, let's start with the monetary authority. Has the monetary authority, which is the CBN, has it been on fire lately?
It
How?
has.
Okay.
Since January, it has. I think they went into like a management retreat and they came back and they started sending out circulars. They first came out with all-in rate and all check. They came up with net open positions, and then they came out with BDCs. I'm also expecting that either before the end of the first quarter of 2024 or beginning of second quarter, the CBN will provide revised guidelines for the banks on recapitalization of the banks. I also, if you follow the development closely now, so you see that the Senate is already beginning to consider debate of the amendments to the CBN Act of 2007. I've seen the draft, and I think that the changes are well in line with what the consensus expectation and estimates are. So yes, the monetary side of the divide is doing their end, but the fiscal side is yet to pick up on the fiscal reforms that are necessary to complement the monetary side that will slow down inflation and stabilize the foreign exchange market, which is the source of nightmare and worry for every boardroom in Nigeria today. Now, see, the number one issue across boardrooms in Nigeria is FX. Number one issue.
Mm. And that is actually a major component too in driving inflation because if you go to the fufu seller, now even the firewood seller, she will tell you, here's a dollar don't increase.
Yes, because
So there's a pass through
she's subject to transporting cassava by by road, and that has diesel and fuel component in it.
component,
So
yeah.
nobody's insulated from inflationary pressure on whatever they. I'll give you an example. So companies are not able to give out pro forma invoices from quotations or requests for quotes in Nigeria today that usually is valid for 30 days. They are not able to give out requests for quotes valid for more than maybe 24 hours for a few days. If you ask me to supply you a certain quantity of maybe iron rod for um, property construction, I practically might not be able to give you a quotation that will last for more than 48 hours. That's how bad it is. Why? Because most of the supply chain for what people do has an FX exposure.
Yeah,
And whenever you're not able to plan as a business because of how volatile the FX market is, then you know that you're in an economic crisis and a recession.
it's so sad because I even saw some companies their financials over the weekend, even I think as a Friday. In fact, I've been seeing the foreign exchange losses, MTN, Nestle, and all of that. So you've been seeing that these companies have been witnessing forex losses. But let's look now at the 4,173 BDCs that the Central Bank of Nigeria has revoked their licenses. Do you think that this will bring a realignment to the structural each part of that market? Because if you take a look at it, BDCs are part of the structure of that market. So is this a realignment of the structural imbalance in the forex market?
I think it's a realignment, and this is an issue that has been debated for a very long time because a few years ago, the central bank had banned the BDCs from being able to access foreign exchange. Now they've created like a framework, a guideline, because the BDCs were basically like giving licenses to operate as finance companies, and there were no guardrails. They could do anything they like. They give out dollar loans. They accept payments. They do spot forwards transactions. They make payments, third-party payments overseas with partner finance companies overseas. Basically, like they were running like parallel banks, without a, a proper banking license without reporting structure. Their transactions are not reported. They could source for dollar from anywhere at whatever volume. It's not reported, it's not audited, it's not controlled, it's not managed by the Central Bank of Nigeria, like the banks that are regulated are required to report to the central bank. So I think what the central bank has done, saying that politically exposed persons, NGOs, charitable organizations, they listed a whole lot of categories of people who
Yeah.
could not BDC license. This is well in line. I think the central bank has also said that it wants to see who the shareholders and directors are to know if there are issues with proxy ownership, like we've seen with politically exposed persons, having proxies run BDCs for them, and then giving them priority in terms of being able to access foreign exchange at the weekly window. So I think this process where the central bank has revoked the license of 4,173 and is doing like a filtration exercise necessary for them to be able to start supplying FX to the BDCs that are well capitalized and that are obeying the extant laws that the central bank has put together to ease the pressure on the market. But at the end of the day, let's not mistake these peripheries for the main issue that we have in the FX market, which is cost for the instability and the high volatility index we've seen today, that the market is still illiquid. And as we speak today, we still have net negative reserve at nearly $2 billion.
So yes, the issue is that of supply, but don't you also think that this is also perhaps, let me say, like a backdoor solution to the issue of supply, because we have, at least before Friday, about 5,690 BDCs in the country. And that same last week, the Central Bank of Nigeria started allocation of $20,000 to BDCs. So with the revocation of 4,173, I guess we should have about 1,517 BDCs now. So the CBN will have less number of BDCs to be allocating $20,000 to. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So,
Nancy, there are some people that own
yeah,
five BDC. There are bankers that own BDC
yeah,
by
you're
proxy.
right.
The
So is
central
this
bank
proning
is
also
right.
part of it too?
Yes, the central
You're
bank is
right
right to
with that,
remove
yeah.
licenses of 4,173, to ensure that you don't have a situation where people go bid for FX from the CBN and then take advantage of the arbitrage opportunity in the black markets. You don't also have a situation where people bid for FX at the CBN and they hold it and they don't sell it, hoping that the rates are going to rise and they will make profit from the spread. The fact that the central bank has also placed a cap on how much cash transactions BDCs are allowed to do is also a master stroke, and that there has to be disclosure on who you're selling to, because if you have an account with the bank and you do transactions with the bank, everything is recorded. Yeah, everything there's a paper trail for everything that the central bank can always use to do its assessments and evaluation of the financial system and the stability of the financial system. The BDCs don't have that paper trail. What the central bank is trying to do is create a paper trail to see demand and supply dynamics and to avoid money laundering. Because what you've had is that apart from the issues in the banking sector on AML and CFT, the BDCs have also contributed to the fact that Nigeria currently is on a grey list by the Financial Action Task Force on AML and CFT. So I think this is also going to add to strengthening that framework for tightening anti-money laundering and getting Nigeria off that grey list, which is also very important for attracting financial flows, not just for the government, but also for companies that deal with other companies overseas.
Kelvin, the issue now will be how will this impact the rate of the naira? Because that is what everyone wants to
Central
hear. That
bank
if
needs
the
to
central
start.
bank is on fire and coming out with different policies per day, it has revoked the licenses of over 4,000 BDCs. How will this impact the naira? One would expect today is a Monday. Of course,
Let's
the naira should react today.
let's see.
And how will
They are
it impact
down.
it in the short term? I want
They
to
are
see a
down.
naira, for me, I want to see a naira that is less than 1,500. I'm sorry.
Well, 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 well,
If I
well
have my
they're
way,
down.
it will go lesser than that. But I know that the economic forces that add to that.
They're down to 1.8 billion US dollars. Yeah, they still have outstanding. The $3.4 billion they took from I am Afrexim and the syndicate partners, which I Project Gazelle, very questionable deal in my opinion. I'm not going to go into the details of that deal, but the monies they took from Afrexim and the syndicate of creditors, is what Cardozo is using to draw down on the FX forward that are outstanding. He's drawn it down again by another 400 million. He announced it at the MPC meeting that you asked a very brilliant question at, that they paid another $400 million last week. But there's still the outstanding of $1.8 billion. He has to clear that outstanding. He also needs to raise up Nigeria's net external reserves to at least $7 billion to meet up with the balance of trade for 1 year, which is anywhere around $6.8 billion. And in my estimate, he needs about $8.5 to $9 billion to do that. Until you get to that level where the net external reserves today, Nancy, is equal to the balance of payment for 1 year, you will not see stability in these markets. That's the level it needs to get to. So the solution to the problem is liquidity, even as it blocks the leakages from IMTOs, from BDCs, and from airing banks who are taking advantage of net open positions to make profit from arbitrage opportunities, difference between all-in rate and second check in the IRE window and the black market. He needs to also press the president to go look for a foreign support line to bring in emergency liquidity that CBN
Do you
gave.
think, sorry to cut you short, Kelvin, do you think that the president should do that now in Qatar? Because
Yes,
these
that's
are
why you should.
Gulf countries
That,
that have serious petrodollars now. Man,
now
those
see, that's
countries,
why
Abu
you
Dhabi, Qatar, all these people, man, the
Qatar,
kind of
Qatar,
dollars they have.
Nancy, Qatar supplied its first LNG in 1996. Nigeria built its first trains between 1999 and 2005. OBJ built 22 million metric tons per annum. Now, since 2005, Nigeria has not added a single million to its LNG train. Qatar built its first LNG train in 1996 and supplied its off-taker in Japan, right? And since then, Qatar has risen that production output capacity from where it started to currently about 110 million metric tons per annum. And Qatar hopes that by 2027, 2028, it will ride it up until 142 million metric tons per annum. And that might exceed the capacity of Australia. Within the last 7 years, America 7 years ago was a net importer of LNG. Today, America exports LNG and is number one ahead of Australia and Qatar.
So
So Qatar,
I
Australia,
really don't know the kind of conversations that the president is having with those guys now,
the question now is that, look, if Qatar, as shared Muslim country, is supporting its Gulf neighbors in Egypt and providing liquidity and stability support for its Gulf neighbors, what's the benefit of Nigeria being in OPEC if it can't go to those OPEC and non-OPEC countries alike in oil and gas to look for support? Why are you in Qatar if you can't speak with the Qataris about having its central bank providing an emergency
support.
intra-central bank lending that is needed to stabilize the FX markets in Nigeria, and look for technical cooperation on how Nigeria can ramp up its LNG capacity. Nancy, as we speak today, NLNG is at 58% capacity utilization. In the 2024 financial year, I expect that the dividends NMPC will collect from NLNG will drop below $1 billion because there's force major that has been on since 2022.
And they've told them not
Gas,
to even export, that all stuff should be for local consumption.
no, that's actually for propane and butane, the little butane that it produces, which is about 0.9% of its composition for natural gas. I'm even
Okay,
talking about methane that is
okay.
liquefied into LNG. Now, you need to be able to, increase your feedstock upstream. You need to build FLNG plants. You need to build more trains. But what is the input for going into FID? If number one, you can't get solid off-taker agreements because the off-takers don't trust your capacity to deliver in the contract because you are force major. If you can't get enough gas feedstock to supply the inland trains and the FLNG vessels that you probably are going to build.
Okay.
So what's the essence of being in Qatar if you can't look for emergency lending for your
Support.
central bank
You
to
know,
stabilize the FX?
why I brought this issue in is that it could also is one of the areas to address supply. But if we take a look at these BDCs, also last week the central bank came up with recapitalization guidelines for these folks. $2 billion for that's 2,500 million naira for tier 1 and tier 2. I spoke with the president of the Bureau de Change Operators on Friday, and he wasn't happy. As an association, they aren't happy about that move by the central bank, and he gave me instances of other countries where it's not up to 2 billion naira. What do you think that the existing 1,517 BDCs should do in terms of this recapitalization? Are they still too much? 1,517 now left from 5,690, I guess. If you take away
Nancy, what about the quantity
4,173,
of the
then
BDC?
secondly, sorry, Kelvin, let me put in this issue so that we can round up on it. How do we permanently solve this foreign exchange crisis? We all know that is a problem of illiquidity, no supply. Where does the NNPC come into all of this? Cardoso was at the NNPC, I think, last month, where he met with the GCO, Mele Kyari, and they had a fantastic discussion, I was told. And the CBN now has a department, to sort out NNPC issues. Between me and you, that NNPC has not been remitting to the central bank. So how do we now address this? And President Tinubu has given a marching order for NNPC to be doing that. So looking at all of this, how do we permanently solve the issue of Forex?
Nancy, so, it's not about the quantity of BDCs, it's about the quality. In my opinion, they should even reduce them to 500 BDCs that are well capitalized, raise their capitalization requirements 5 billion naira, because of the volume of transactions they process and the exchange rate today.
5 billion, they are not a bank, Kevin.
But they operate like banks. That's the reality. They operate like parallel banks in the black market.
They can't take deposits and all of that.
That's a 5
You
billion
can
naira.
also have a BDC now if you're interested.
5 billion naira today is less than $3 million, I think.
Yeah, it's about $5 million. Yeah.
No, it's about $3 million. It's about $3 million. Now look at the capacity of transactions the BDCs do. So it's not about the chairman of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators complaining that he doesn't need to like what the central bank is doing. As far as it's in the interest of the markets and Nigerians, it is the right decision. Okay. On the issue of stabilizing the exchange rate, yeah. I honestly believe that we have a fiscal crisis. Okay, in my opinion, the Central Bank of Nigeria needs to come up with like a coordination with the fiscal authority to raise emergency liquidity. That liquidity is needed because the exchange rate has a serious bearing on inflation. The exchange rate has a serious bearing on most macroeconomic indicators. The exchange rate determines the price of fuel. In fact, there are rumors that PMS subsidy is back by $1 trillion a month.
There are rumors. Kelvin, you are saying there are rumors. Have we not said it here on this show before?
Yes.
We questioned them sometime last year now.
Exactly. So
it's not rumor, it's fact. You will see it because the prices are not aligning.
They move from DSDP, they move to PPSA. So if you want to stabilize the markets, for example, and you want to come to the exchange rate, you have to look at the fact that you have a commercial refiner that just sent another 800,000 barrels of crude oil to Nigeria. How can Dangote import crude oil from America and then sell to Nigeria at a regulated price and collect subsidy from the government? It's not going to work. And him being able to supply petroleum products to Nigerians will have an impact on inflation, which will have an impact on the exchange rate. So the fiscal authority needs to align. It needs to ramp up its production of crude oil and gas. Yeah, it needs to get emergency liquidity to get that balance, that utility balance of net reserves, not gross reserves, net reserves, less your P&L encumbrances to your balance of payment for 1 year, right? And then it needs to raise the tax and non-tax revenue to GDP ratio to reduce the dependencies of the federal government on the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is the foundation of this crisis we have today, Nancy.
All right, Kelvin, I think we'll leave it at that. If I had more time, I wanted to ask you the contribution of banks. What will be the role of banks in all of this? Because if we have a cut of BDCs, what will be the role of banks moving forward? Because many people still go to banks and they don't get FX. But that will be on another edition of the program. Thank you, Kelvin, and have a nice time in Lagos. I see you're enjoying Lagos now. You left us in Abuja, but you and your traffic, enjoy.
Thank you,
all right.
Great week.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.